everybody, and welcome once again to All Things Irish and Rock and Roll. My name is Benny White, and it's been a while, but we're back, myself and Brendan Figlis. And this time we'd like to feature an interview with one of Ireland's finest guitar players. There's no doubt about it. His name is Jaye Malone, probably James, and maybe that's where the J comes from. But anyway, Jaye Malone, as I said, one of Ireland's best guitar players, and he played with one of the most popular bands in the 60s here in Dublin called the King Bees. He'll tell you about that, how it came about, how they met Ditch Cassidy, the late great Ditch Cassidy, and how they got him on board singing. But Jay was also a very aspiring football player. I bet you didn't know that, neither did I. And anyway, he formed the King Bees with some other people, and I remember seeing them. They were fantastic. And they'd done a couple of tours of Germany, very interesting stuff. And he now lives abroad, and he came home to Dublin especially for this interview. So we hope you enjoyed, and we'd like to introduce Jaye Malone.
I would like to tell you how I started in the music business. It would have been in the early 60s. I was crazy about soccer, crazy about music and crazy about art. But I decided the soccer was the main thing for me. So I played for a local football team, a couple of them. But so did a friend of mine called Jim Hudson. And it was Jim who approached me and asked me to join the band, which are called the King Bees now. So that was the start of me joining the King Bees. But how I started on the guitar wasn't easy because there was no teachers about then, no books or nothing like that. And I learned from the piano to find an E note, this E note here. I learned how to tune the guitar, but I didn't know any chords then. So I made up 2 chords myself. And I was big into Eddie Cochran then. Eddie Cochran was a fine guitar player, fine songwriter, but was also a great blues guitarist. So anyway, to get me off, kick off on a few chords, I had an open E like this, which I found from the piano. And then I found I had another E here on the 7th fret of the 5th string. So I had 2 E's. Now I didn't know at the time that this was a G sharp, so this was my chord. So as I said, I had no chord charts, I didn't know what chords were, I thought that was it. And then I transferred that across and I had an A. And then I done that for a B7 and back. So it's like. That's how I get into the chords. And then eventually I got a chord book, started to find the chords, you know. But I had a good memory. I went to Walton's music store, and any tune that was coming out, I'd remember the chords. I'd go back in, forgot that chord, what's that chord? Come back out. And then I'd have the chords to all the latest tune. But then how I started really, I hooked up with a guy called Davy Cummins. Now Davy was a ringer for Billy Fury, an absolute ringer. So he said, "You fancy backing me?" I said, "Yeah, give it a go." I only had a small cheap guitar. So we used to do the Joe Mac productions. I think they were on all the Apollo cinemas. Kind of like a variety show. So he'd do a couple of Billy Fury numbers, and it was good for me backing him. But I got caught once. I had no guitar. And I said to Joe Mac, he said, "Don't bother, we get the guitar." So he said, "You're on in 5 minutes," and they handed me a guitar. It was a left-handed guitar. So talk about thinking on your feet. So I had to play the chords inside out and upside down, but I got away with it. But it was a kind of a good experience for me anyway. So then after that then, as I said, I went to gym and I joined a band called the King Bees. Now the King Bees, as I said, would have been probably about 64 probably then. And there was Jim Hudson on bass, Howard Spears on guitar, and a young Morris Boland. He was 15. And myself. was about 18 then. And Morris had great contacts. So we got gigs in the Hunt Ball. We were the first band to play in the Olympia at the Bob Monkhouse show. So we were spot on that. We were the first band to play in the Gaiety and the first band to play in the Gate Theatre. We played with the Dubliners, which is really for playwrights and that, you know. So anyway, the gigs were grand and things were all going very well. And then we decided Howard Spears left then for work at that time. So we took in a great guitar player, a friend of Brian Harris's, a fine guitar player, Brian, from Bray. And Mick was absolutely superb on rhythm. Great vocals, very, very, very light technique, fabulous guitar player. So that was then, Mick was on board then, and that's when we done a record. Now, the record wasn't decided by us. The name The King Bees was given to Morris Boland by Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. He had connections there with management. So the Rolling Stones had done I'm a King Bee on one of the albums, not sure if the first or second. And Brian Jones says, we were doing something similar, like Stones kind of music. And he said, don't you call yourself The King Bees? We have I'm a King Bee on our album. So that's what we done, we call ourselves The King Bees. And to add to that, we had a black polo neck, and we had stripes, aluminum stripes across them, like a bumblebee, you know. And that was our kind of line-up or set-up for the stage. Vocal-wise, the band was good. Now, we wouldn't be like the Hollies, but we had good harmonies and that, but we decided we needed a front man. You needed somebody out front, and we advertised and got a guy called Mick Monroe. His name is Mike Mullins. And that's when we started doing the Gaiety and all them places. But we were the first band, or beat group, to play outside of Dublin. And we played in Tipperary town under a Garda escort. And we came out on stage with the lights went out and all you could see was the stripes of the aluminum stripes on the jerseys. And we done our set then. But great from with Noel Bridgman now, he played with the band for a while. Super guy. No, super guy. You had various people in, you know. But the strange thing was when we auditioned for Ditch was in Sound City. And I think it was Tony Boland there, there's a few people there, photographers. So we had the stage and different people were coming up. So Ditch came up to do the audition because your man Mike Monroe, who was with the early King Bees, he was gone. And Ditch is standing there in the jacket. And below his knuckles, you know, standing like black horn-rimmed glasses, long jacket. So he comes up and now Morris, all kind of looking at him. I said, what do you want to do? He said, I think you've done the Kinks. What the Kinks from So Tired Away. So Tired Away. And he sang it and then he took the harp out, the harmonic, and it lended a whole new thing to it. And he was really into it. I said, gee, it's a great feeling now. But there was a bit, you know, they're saying, I don't know, I'm not saying they were looking for Cliff Richard or anything like that. I said, but the guy has something. It has a bit of magic, you know. He puts his heart and soul. So took him on board, and that was the interest on the band then, you know. Then the record came up. Now, but as I said, the record really wasn't of our choosing because it was a Burt Bacharach number. It's called My Little Red Book. But we covered that on the B side with I'm a King Bee. But it's okay, we've done that in 2 or 3 takes. The A side was about 26. But it was good for this, the session where Johnny Wadham on drum, Dick Keating on organ, John Paul Jones from Led Zeppelin, who produced the record, on piano, fine musician he was. And Tommy Ellis was his studio, he played bass. Now we had a dilemma, we were looking at all this and we said, how the hell are we going to play this? There's not one guitar and the bass, double bass, not a guitar. I said, jeez, we're going to be on RTE at the weekend or something and covered this. I said, jeez. So we said, okay, we had the A side then. So I ran through, I got John Paul Jones and he gave me a lesson. I was handy enough now on the piano. And Jim could play a bit as well. So I covered on the piano. The first chord was with a G minor 7 with a C bass, which would be quite easy on the guitar because it'd be, that say, that the G minor 7 there, that's the C bass, so let's have that down. And then the organ, that the organ, you know, so forth. So Jim had the organ covered and I had the piano covered. Now the reason for that was we were going to be on TV and you'd look a right wally. So they had a mirror on the ceiling, they shot the camera on the mirror and it came down to me playing the piano. So I could play it all through the song. So we got away with the show, you know. But anyway, that was the record, and then we went off to Germany then. Went off to Hanover and Braunschweig. And it was a great trip. Absolutely superb. Everything went well, the band was singing well, the whole lot. But then when we came back, Morris decided to leave the band. And it was a pity because myself and Ditch were on the cover of RTE TV Guide, I think, RTE Guide then at the time. They had a different title and things are really going well. So Morris' parents said, look, he's taken a different direction. So quite sad, you know. So we kept the thing going and we took on Dougie McElwain from the Mad Lads from the north of Ireland, and Dougie's superb drummer. Great energy to the band. So we took a different direction, more kind of bluesy, rocky. And that was the band then. We went back to Germany with that band. It was superb, superb. So then after a while, Ray MacDonald approached me. Ray had an idea to get half the Creatures and half the King Bees. And this was doing more soul then than the blues and rock. And I said, yeah, it just said, what do you think? I said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. So then Frank Boylan came on board. It was Frank Boylan, Ray, myself, Jim Hudson, and they brought on another extra rhythm, Davey Hall on rhythm guitar. So it was a great lineup, and we done lots of gigs. Then we decided to head out to Germany again, and this time we went through a fella called Tony McNeeve. He had a shop in Parnell Street. Lovely fella, Tony. So he organised the tour and we went away. And they worked the tour. We had two dancers. We had us as a group performing. Two dancers either side. And then Ditch coming on as kind of the main performer. And it made kind of a show of us. And it was tight, a 1 hour tight show. But that time we had Tony McNeil brought us over. We had a manager, Pat Fay, and Pat was fantastic photographer. He took all the King Bee stuff. He's a great artist, you know. So we had Pat, but when we went through Tony McNeil, we had to go through a guy called Johnny Downs. And then Johnny Downs, we had to go to another guy called Al Sabatsky. Now, Al Sabatsky was a Polish millionaire. And he funded, we were playing all American bases. So rather than us waiting 4 months for the money, he would put the money up front and pay it, and he would wait from the American bases. But also the custodian of the club had to get a kick off as well. But in the end, we were getting about 65 quid each week, which wasn't bad now, you know. But we kicked off, and we kicked off that tour. We were without for about 2 days, no food, the usual, waiting on the money to come through. And myself and Ditch went to a German restaurant, and Ditch started singing stuff like Danny Boy and a few other things. So we got free meal, free booze, free everything. So and then the money came through. So that was a good tour. It was a good tour, but a bit tough now, a bit tough. We done, say we were based in Dublin, we done the gig in Donegal, then back to Dublin, then down to Kerry, back to Dublin, and instead of being back to Kerry, back up to Donegal, so it's all crisscross. So what happened, we had so many gigs, but with 3 dates in between, and he said, I've slapped them in here. So it wasn't like a circular thing with back, forward, crisscross, you know. But Ray done the driving that time. We had a Noble Capitan van and we bought a car. And Ray done all the driving. I don't know how he done it. Up through the mountains in southern Bavaria. We'd leave in the morning at 10 and then come back at all hours. Get about 4 hours sleep a night because of the way the tour was there. So things went a bit offside there, you know, with the lads. It wasn't the, you know yourself, if we'd say the 10 months were coming in, so he just decided to kind of call it a day and come back home to Dublin, you know, and rethink the plan and then go out again. But that's when I got back to Dublin and said I was leaving. That was it, you know. So that was the end of that kind of an era, you know. And then from that, then I went to, I'd done folk. I had written quite a few songs, so I said it's time to let them out the bag. So I done the folk scene, the usual Universal Folk Club, and with all the heads down there. And through that then, I'd done that for about 2 years, and then I went to the Gresham Hotel, big dance orchestra. There was about 22 in it when I joined it initially, which was great for me. I mean, I could just about read, you know, the way, and he said, okay, you have the gig, you know. So from that then, that kind of era passed, and Ditch kind of came back on the scene when we had a wedding band. And he was after being in getting treatment, and he came out and he was fit, ready to go. So we had a wedding band, myself, Ray MacDonald, and Martin Nolan on keyboard. So we took him on board, and we brought back the name, The News. So he said The News featured Ditch Cassidy. And then we took that direction then. And he was singing out of his skin. He was great. Then that kind of fizzled out, and then toward the end, it ended up with just me and Ditch. As we started, we'd done Duffy's and Malahide, then 2-piece, and we brought on then a great young bass player, Graham McClatchy, and they were the final day, but they were very good. Ditch was top form, but he was getting on, he was getting problems, you know, breathing and that. And so that's how we ended up, myself and Ditch. So that's about the kind of the general synopsis of my time at Ditch, you know. But guitar-wise along the way, you know, from playing and meeting people, it was absolutely fantastic. I met some great people, and notwithstanding John Paul Jones giving me a piano lesson. I mean, it's absolutely magic. But that time I was teaching Jimmy Faulkner and Tony Geraghty along the way, and they were two angels, I have to say. Jimmy Faulkner was so hungry, and he used to say to Macduff, the drummer, he'd say, gone up to Jaye today for this, you know. And I said, Jimmy, I'll just teach you what I know, you know. He said, but I used to see you playing the Moulin Rouge and be up here. Yeah, but I'd be playing what I'm playing down here up here, the same thing I knew. So he was great. But he said, do you know anything about diminished? So there's a diminished scale, so but you have your diminished chord, you know. So he said, yeah, so I just gave him, say, the diminished, well, whatever that, and you know, whatever it was, then whatever. So he went off and said, that's a diminished, and there's your chord. You have different shapes there. And he came back the next week, blew me away. You had this diminished thing on, say, those 3 sets of strings, those 3 sets of strings, and he had it all over the neck, and he was like, yes, great. And then I showed him a bit of Bach. I said, you know, and he had that, and he said, Jesus, Jimmy, you just give him something small, and he made it his own, you know, the way, and he took it to the end, stripped it apart. And we done a little record together, the two of us. This fella had a hairdresser, and he said, I want to do a Hey Joe. He said, will you do it? I said, yeah. So Jimmy says, can I come on with this? I said, yes. So two of us done it, you know, a bit of crack. And Tony Geraghty was great. Tony was a super player too. So Tony said, what's going to happen? He said, I'm going to Spain. What should I expect? I said, you'll expect to have no food, you know, maybe no money for 3 days. But all in all, says I, it'll be so good, you know, that it'll outweigh the bad times and balance, you know. Came back, he said exactly as you said. So a lovely time at that. The other time then, guitar-wise, I was looking for a tutor, I couldn't get one, and Louis Stewart was about, but he was he hadn't time, so I had 3 sessions with Louis. And what a player, you know. And he was kind of an inspiration to anyone who played country, jazz or rock. Everyone, you know, Louis was the man, you know. But I had 3 great sessions with him. I remember them like it was yesterday, you know. And he was teaching me to read, you know, tap out the reading like that, you know, tap it out with a pencil and then play it, you know. But there was one day we were reading away. He said, I wanted to play this piece called The Horse Soldiers, written by a guy from BBC called Judd Proctor. And I'm playing it, and he says, play it, I'm reading away. He said, play that bit again. And whatever it was. I said, play it again. I said, and then he tried it, and he couldn't do it, you know. And he said, play it again. I'm about laughing. I said, and then he had to go, and he couldn't do it. And then eventually done it, and he laughed. He said, you're going to make it. Had a bit of laugh over it. But the nice compliments, you know. So then, from that, then I was writing then at the time of the folk scene, writing a lot of stuff then. And it was great to meet up all Sonny Condell, you know, everyone that was in the scene then, Danny Doyle, Christy Moore, they were all in the folk clubs. Great scene, great scene. And it gave you something to do. If you're writing a song and say, I'll have it ready for 2 weeks. And when you got your special spot, if you were there for 10 weeks on the trot or whatever, they give you top of the bill and give you a few quid. So it's great to have all these guys sitting down looking up to you, you know, when you were doing top of the bill, you know, Christy Moore and all the lads and Paul Brady, the whole of them, great. I don't know where I went wrong. I maybe should have stuck with the folk, you know. And Frank Boylan was had a great master of the bass. And what a ingenious man with electronics. So we had no guitar tuners in those days. And we used to rehearse down the apartment. There was a club in Abbey Street, downstairs. And Frank would say, quiet. And we had a fluorescent tube. And you hear the buzz on it. He said, have a listen. So he'd say to me, hit your second string. So that was the buzz, is in B natural on the tube. So when we all got that, okay, we're all in concert tune now. And that's what we used. Absolutely fantastic. But as I said, when we're doing the blues and the Hendrix stuff and that, you need to have light gauge string. And this, you couldn't get light gauge strings in the early days. So I spoke to Brian Harrison on this, and Brian was on the same mind, like he done the same thing. But from Eddie Cochran used to take things that are quite heavy strings, say this could be a 56 or more, right? So what we do is you take off the 6th one and throw it away. And you bring all the string back one. So your first is now your second. And then you got a tenor A banjo string, and that was your 6th. So it meant then that your third here was kind of covered or uncovered. You know, you kind of get the bend then, you know. So that's how we got the bend, and that's how Eddie Cochran, he came up with that idea. But when he was playing, when he came to London, there was a guitar player called Big Jim Sullivan. So Big Jim Sullivan would have done Tom Jones and the rest of the lads like that, you know. He was fabulous. So Eddie Cochran showed him how to do this. And Big Jim Sullivan went on to teach Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck on Saturday afternoon, lessons for 10 children. And he had a trick, you know, for the blues, you know. I thought that was a great story, you know. And I got that from off BBC Two, a documentary on Eddie Cochran. Sometimes himself did just have a little fallout every so often. I remember 3 times mainly, but the second time really stood out. And I had left the band, and I said, no, Ditch, until we get our act together, you know, keep to the music, and, you know. Now, Ditch, I have to say, if he was rehearsing and learning new songs, he was fantastic. Just when he had that little gap and he had nothing to do, he may stray, as they say. But anyways, he came to me and he said, I have a record deal. And I said, he said, I've no band. Will you help me out? I said, no, I'm finished, I'm gone. I was doing something, no, I'm gone, I'm finished. He pleaded with me, and I just said, no, I was sticking by my gun. So then I said, okay. So he heads off, and he went up Grafton Street, and he bumped into, now I was palling around with Eric Bell at the time, because he had a flat up in Stoney Barra, and we used to do the Django Reinhardt stuff, messing around the two of us. So I said, oh no, so he bumped into Eric, and Eric says, Eric, can you give me a dig out? He says, I've no band and I've a record deal. Eric says, yeah. No, he says, I don't want to know what happened, you know. He says, you know, falling out, and he said, I don't do politics. He said, I will, and I got Philo on the bass and Brian Downey. So off they went, and they done it, I think it was for the Durham label with Decca, something like that. And they'd done a Leon Russell number, Hamburger Lady or something like that. And the guy out there liked the band, liked Philo and the band. He said, if you like that band. So Ditch got a record deal, and they said, we're going to give that band a record deal too. And that was the start of Tin Lizzy. You see, with the beat groups, I suppose, in one sense, we were kind of a little bit of a threat to the show bands. But the show band now, big money. And there's always that kind of rivalry. And if one left a beat group and went to a show band, that you broke the 15th commandment. Like, you were in, nobody would talk to you. You know, you had that little suit and you're in the band and you're all doing that stuff. Don't talk to them, you know. And I remember poor Paul Ashford at the time, you know, God, he got an awful slagging for pulling out, you know, but we remember playing in, but Paul Ashford was still a rocker at heart, you know. They decided we're going to do Dracula. They put him in a coffin. And we were playing with the Everly Brothers in the stadium, which was great, you know, to see them, fabulous, you know. And down the band room with them, you know, even better again. I loved the guitar player. So we met them all, so Everly's went, they done their spot, so we're back up. So we go on the stage and they have all this dry eyes. And I'm just playing anything on the guitar to make it sound weird and dry eyed and the lights were going. So they put Ditch in the coffin. And it was the old stadium with the boxing ring, because they had to come up through the steps, you know. So my two brothers were carrying the coffin and another two fellas, and the weight of it, you know. So when they got to the boxing ring area, they just fetched them on the stage. So I hit the stage and the lid came off, right? And Dick jumps out with the cape, you know, and the ketchup's all coming down, takes out a machete, and he just screams, and he just, what they're doing are weird, bit, jumps off the stage and he attacks all the women in the yard, and they're all screaming, and they run out the door up the South Circular Road. So we just have to keep going till he comes back, you know. But what a show. What a show. Ditch and Gary Moore had an apartment in Parnell Square, which was handy just for the gigs and that, right? So Ditch came home late one night, probably from another gig, with the cape, and he couldn't get in. Now, it would have been only the fourth floor. So he went around the back and he could see a sash window open just a little bit. And he said, I'll climb up there now and I'll get in there and I'll be able to get in. So he climbs up, but he couldn't get the sash window up, and he had his feet were on the sill and his toes were in. He pulled it, still can't get it, and all of a sudden the sash window go bang, and a bang of a noise. Ditch falls in, face down on the bedroom floor, and Gary jumps up out of bed with a young girlfriend, and she's screaming her head off. And she's even screaming all the more when Ditch stands up like this with the cape. And Gary was fighting. Well, I just tell you, what a story. What a story. And they have a good laugh over that now. I was very fortunate to play with some great musicians. They were all kind of gave me, when I was in the Gresham Hotel, I was there for 2 seasons. And then I was in Boston for 3 seasons. These guys would teach me how to read, and they just keep you all the time. They called me the baby in the band at the time. Played with some great players. But I played with a lovely man, Mick Butler. Mick Butler's dad, super. And he played many gigs now, he'd give me a shout, and we'd done me shared gigs and all. And it's 1 in a million. And at the time I was in working in the shoe game, and he was in the shoe game as well. But we used to have a great banter. It was down on Talbot Street, and when I got a chance I'd pop in and be talking about music all day instead of shoes, you know. Lovely man, Mick, yeah. So at the moment now I'm living in Spain, and I brought a few things with me from Dublin, because before I moved to Spain I was doing an awful lot of teaching. I was doing workshops in schools, teaching kids how to write songs, making records. And I got approached by the curriculum board to develop this. Would I do it in every? I just done it a one-off. I got kids to write an original song in 7 hours and record it. So they asked me would I do it in every school, and they paid me 600 to 800. So I brought a guy with me, and we done all the schools in Cork and Limerick and that. But I taught guitar for 12 years in Marino College. But the teacher said to me, I have you enrolled for a ukulele class next September as well as the guitar. So I don't play ukulele. She said, you better learn it, she said, because the class is running, the class is full. So I said, Jesus, how am I going to learn it? And it's quite easy because similar to the guitar, it's only 4 notes away. So if you play C on the guitar, you can C, D, E, F on the ukulele. So it's just a bit of maths and shifting. So when I arrived in Spain, that's what I'm doing there, teaching in Spain and doing jamming, teaching a bit of ukulele and having a bit of great crack with it, great lab. So the plan is to try and I have 10, 12 people here and do another area and do the same, get 10 or 12 and say once a month maybe I'd love to have 200 people playing at the same time. Might happen, yeah. So that's the plan, you know. And I'm gigging. I've done a lovely bluesy kind of jazz gig for Ukraine to get money for the medical and the Red Cross. And I've been jamming with people over there. But I have now work lined up, but I have no gear. So all my strats and all are over there now. So it's on your bike, more or less. I'd like to thank Brendan for having me out here today for all things Irish and rock and roll. It's been a pleasure. Like, as I talk about these things, they just come to mind. It's not kind of planned, you know the way. So I hope you got something from it, you know.